Betrayed and sold into slavery, Joseph's epic rise from prison to palace reveals how God transforms suffering into purpose. Joseph's story begins in Genesis chapter 37, where we meet a young man favored by his father, Jacob. Joseph is given a special robe, but his brother's jealousy quickly turns to hatred. When Joseph shares his dreams of greatness, his brothers conspire against him, selling him into slavery and telling their father he was killed by wild animals. At this point, Joseph's life is thrown into chaos. He is taken to Egypt, a foreign land, where he has no family, no friends, and no hope of returning home. It's a situation that could easily lead anyone to despair, to question God's goodness, or to give up entirely. But Joseph's story doesn't end in despair. In Egypt, he is sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, and despite his circumstances, Joseph works hard and earns Potiphar's trust. Genesis chapter 39 tells us that the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. Joseph is given responsibility over Potiphar's household, and he thrives. But then another trial comes. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. Joseph refuses, choosing to honor God and his master. When she falsely accuses him of assault, Joseph is thrown into prison. This is a critical moment in Joseph's story. He did the right thing, but his circumstances got worse, not better. It's a reality many of us face. Sometimes doing what's right leads to more suffering, not less. Joseph could have become bitter, angry, or cynical. He could have questioned whether God was really with him at all. But instead, he remained faithful. In prison, Joseph again finds favor, this time with the prison keeper, who puts him in charge of the other prisoners. Even in the depths of suffering, God is preparing Joseph for something greater. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that suffering is not the end of the story. It's easy to look at our pain and assume that God has abandoned us, or that our suffering is meaningless. But Joseph's life shows us that God is present even in our darkest moments. He is at work, shaping us, preparing us, and using our experiences for a purpose we may not yet see. As Stephen Davey points out in his lesson, God is still at work in our lives even as we suffer. Like Joseph, we can't always see the end results when our lives are in turmoil, but we can trust that God is preparing us in some unique ways to serve Him. Joseph's faithfulness in the face of temptation and injustice is a model for us all. When Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, Joseph didn't just resist, he fled. He recognized that sin isn't just about what other people see or know. It's about who we are before God. Joseph's words are striking. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Even when no one was watching, Joseph knew that God was watching. His integrity wasn't for show. It was rooted in a deep relationship with God. But Joseph chose to honor God, even when it cost him everything. He lost his cloak, his reputation, and his freedom, but he kept his character. And in the end, that character would be the foundation for everything that came next. Joseph's suffering didn't end with his imprisonment. He spent years in prison, forgotten by those he helped. But even there, God was at work. Joseph learned to manage Potiphar's household, and then he learned to manage a prison. God was preparing him to one day manage the nation of Egypt. Every experience, every hardship was part of God's plan to equip Joseph for the role he would eventually play in saving his family and countless others from famine. When Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker were imprisoned, Joseph interpreted their dreams. He asked the cupbearer to remember him when he was restored to his position, but the cupbearer forgot. Joseph was left in prison for 2 more years. It's a reminder that God's timing is not our timing. Just because we do the right thing doesn't mean we'll be rewarded right away. Sometimes we have to wait. Finally, Pharaoh himself had a dream that no one could interpret. The cupbearer remembered Joseph, and Joseph was brought before Pharaoh. Joseph interpreted the dream, warning of 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. Pharaoh recognized Joseph's wisdom and put him in charge of all Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. Joseph's years of suffering had prepared him for this moment. He had learned to trust God, to manage people and resources, and to remain faithful in the face of injustice. Now, he was in a position to save not only Egypt, but his own family. When the famine came, Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt to buy food. They didn't recognize Joseph, but he recognized them. He could have sought revenge or turned them away. Instead, Joseph tested them to see if they had changed. When he revealed himself, he wept with joy and forgave them. He told them, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive, as they are today." Joseph's perspective on his suffering had changed. He saw that God had used even the worst things in his life for a greater purpose. Joseph's story is a powerful example of how God can use suffering for good. It doesn't mean that suffering is good in itself, or that God causes evil. But it does mean that God is able to bring good out of even the most painful experiences. Joseph's suffering was not wasted. It was woven into God's plan for his life and for the lives of many others. For us, Joseph's story is a source of hope and encouragement. When we face suffering, it's easy to feel alone, forgotten, or abandoned by God. But Joseph's life reminds us that God is present even in our darkest moments. He is at work, preparing us, shaping us. Joseph's story also challenges us to remain faithful even when life is hard. It's easy to compromise our values when we're under pressure, or to give in to bitterness when we've been wronged. But Joseph's example shows us that integrity matters, even when no one is watching. Our faithfulness in the small things prepares us for the big things God has in store for us. Finally, Joseph's story invites us to trust God's timing. We may not see the purpose in our suffering right away. We may have to wait, sometimes for years, to see how God is working. But we can trust that He is faithful and that He will bring good out of even the most difficult circumstances. Joseph's story ends with reconciliation and restoration. He is reunited with his family, and he forgives those who hurt him. He sees the bigger picture, recognizing that God was at work all along. His suffering was not the end of the story, but a chapter in a much larger plan. As we reflect on Joseph's story, may we be encouraged to trust God in our own suffering. May we remain faithful, even when life is hard. And may we look forward with hope, knowing that God is at work in our lives, preparing us for the good things He has in store. And as we close, let Joseph's journey be more than just a biblical lesson. Let it be a lens through which you view your own life. His story reminds us that pain is never the final word in God's plan. Even in betrayal, abandonment, and injustice, God was writing a greater story, one of healing, redemption, and restoration. Joseph didn't let bitterness take root. He didn't allow past wrongs to shape his future. Instead, he clung to his faith, trusted God's hand, and allowed his character to be molded through every trial. You may be in a season where nothing makes sense, where it feels like you've been forgotten in your own prison. Not as a victim, but as a victor, he gave us a picture of what divine perspective looks like, seeing God's hand even in the wounds others caused. So hold on, keep going, keep trusting. The God who was with Joseph in the pit, in the prison, and in the palace is the same God who is with you. He hasn't forgotten you. He's preparing you. Your story isn't over. In fact, it may just be getting started. Stay faithful, stay hopeful, and let God turn your trials into a testimony. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more such content.